got a question. Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
And here we are. I was digging on the view and the music, and we're going to start now. I was liking it. I was really into it. Charlie, can everybody hear that music that we hear?
Yeah. I was thinking,
okay, I don't know because I'm on this end and not that end.
I just want you to know we use that one because I can't get the rights to Shangri-La.
I do the Kramer thing, you know. I'm like into it. I've been watching a lot of Seinfeld lately. Sorry. This is Home Show Radio. I'm Tom Tynan, and I answer your home improvement questions. And I work with Charlie Mosier from Mosier Media, I might add. And he keeps me on the air, and I try to keep us out of trouble, and I'm not very good at it. But I will answer your questions.
Actually, yes, Tom has been answering your questions here on home improvements for probably the last 30-something years, 34 years, isn't it, and counting?
Supposedly I'm in 34th year. It started on October of 87.
Grade. Yeah, he was in the 7th grade when he started.
I wish. As old as I am, I wish.
Yeah, but we're here to answer your questions about home improvements, and if you have any, go ahead and put them in the comments section. We had a little challenge last week with that working, but we got that worked out. So if you have questions, you put them in there. We'd love to get them. I see Denise and Linda are watching. Good to have you along with us, and along with all y'all. And so we're going to be answering questions that we get from HomeShowRadio.com. And of course, Tom, you didn't run through your whole thing about where to find you on the radio.
I know, and that's okay because I will. Okay. Sports Radio 610 in Houston, Texas, which is AM dial 610. I'm on every Saturday from 9 until noon. And Sunday, 8 to 11. In fact, Charlie's on me the first half hour on Sunday because he brings all the stuff in from the website where we get a lot of questions and comments. And we actually have some interviews, too, from some of our certified home show pros. And it kind of kicks things off on Sunday morning, but that's when I'm on.
All right. Well, and I see Bill and Jim have joined us. Nice to have you with us here today at Home Show Radio, and everybody on the YouTube and all else. We're monitoring our Home Show Radio one here, but we get, if you have a question anywhere and you want to put it to the Dalai Lama of home improvement there, go ahead and enter it into. You don't have to climb the mountain. You can just put it right in the question section.
I'm too old for mountains.
Okay. There's no escalator. And by the way, Tom didn't mention our sister show, which is our cousin show, one or the other, the Garden Pros.
Danny Milliken, which is all about gardening. He's one of the best I've ever talked with. There's only one other on radio, and he's not in Houston, so I'm not going to give his name, but he was really good and still is too. But Danny is definitely right up there with the rest of them. And he has this huge support group that Charlie's going to help me make sure I get it all right.
Support group, that's right. Every week is a gardening intervention. And,
there's always lots of activity.
Yeah,
and it's all his nurseries here in town. They have all their experts, and there's some good experts there.
Well, RCW is part of Home Show Radio, of course. David has been part of the show, since before we were doing the show. But he's been around for a long time. But over on the Garden Pros, we have other local garden centers that are involved. Let me just bring them here so I don't forget anybody here. There we go. So you got Buchanan's, you got Nelson's, you got Warren's, Plants for All Seasons, Enchanted, both the Enchanteds, and of course Kingwood Garden Center. And one of them will be here every Saturday answering questions. But you can, if you go to HomeShowRadio.com, there's a link that'll take you over to the Garden Pros site where you can get help with your gardening. So basically
it's great
the
about
division
that
of labor, Tom, the division of labor is that Danny does everything outside away from the house. Tom does everything on and in the house.
That's true. And with Danny, he's like me. I'm the contractor, but I know all these experts, and we have them as our certified home show pros. Danny, of course, in gardening, he can answer any question, but then he has a specialist, his rose specialist, his fruit tree specialist. It's amazing how they get into it. So it's a great show.
Yeah, and you can learn about their podcast and their they have a live that they do just like this. Of course, we're on the Garden Pros page as well as Home Show Radio and our YouTube and their YouTube and all that. We just hit everything. It's like the end of that Star Trek one. Fire everything, and here we are. So, All right, let's get to the questions you send us at homeshowradio.com. That's the business at hand. And remember, if you have a question you want to go ahead and put it in the comments section, we'll answer it. All right. First question comes from Larry in Goody, Virginia. I'm going to say it's Good, Virginia, but he says, what is the process, Tom, for installing fresh air returns into an AC system?
Well, I keep it really simple, and that's why I like to handle a lot of these things, and it's the same thing I've done in my own home. Usually you have a return air plenum and a supply plenum. Let's forget about the supply. That's where all the air goes out of the system into the house. The return air is where you would follow that duct or that chaseway into your air conditioning system from your return air filter, if you have a filter there, or if it goes to a media filter up on the system. And what you do is you just tie in a dryer duct, just a 4-inch Lamaflex from that plenum. And I took mine up and just put a little nail in the rafters and hung them right below the ridge vent. And what it does is it just pulls in replacement air. Now, people will say, oh, if it's really cold out, you're going to bring in cold replacement air and it's going to be uncomfortable, not efficient. Or if it's hot out, like it is in Houston in the summer, the same thing, only opposite. You bring in all that hot air in. It is true. All homes, no matter how tight you make them, and making them too tight is not good, they're going to have some infiltration. You're going to have some air from the outside that wants to get in. Now, you can pull it in through the walls. You can pull it in through the fireplace. You can pull it in from the the vent hood over your cooktop, and it'll come in through that ductwork, or your dryer vent for that matter. It'll pull it in. But what you're doing is you're pulling in dirty air. You're pulling in uncontrolled air, unconditioned air, and that's not good. So this way, what it does is it wants to pull in air to inside the home to balance the system, because all ductwork leaks a little bit. So this way it comes in, it goes through a filter, it goes through the conditioning, and then it gets into the house. So you have controlled infiltration as opposed to uncontrolled infiltration, and you get fresh air returns too. Fresh air in a home is very good. And now with all these issues we're having in the country, COVID, just to be specific, air filtration systems, fresh air returns are getting really important, and they always have been. And it's something we all need to look into, not for control of viruses, but just to keep a healthier environment. And even in airplanes and things like that, they're starting to bring in more outside air because it's a healthier way to live.
Wow. Well, now you know why he's the home improvement guy. Anyway.
I like good air. Hey, what do you say?
All right, and you're right about the filtered air. And I mean, it's interesting that they make such a big deal out of the filtering on the airlines now. I don't know, have they really even changed that? I think they've always filtered the air that way. They're just talking about it now.
Well, there's a lot of different things out there. You have UV lights. Right. You've got things that create ions,
yeah. Yeah, they're using
there's
HEPA
a lot of
filters
different
on the planes.
stuff.
Yeah.
HEPA filters now for airplanes, and you'll see them in a lot of commercial buildings. Commercial buildings always required fresh air returns because so many people are inside. Now they're just making them even more clean. And that's always good because they have these huge plenums, so they do have light shining on the walls of these plenums because they're so big as opposed to a little thing you'd have in your house. So they have a different process they go through. But you'll find a lot of home filters too that are becoming more and more popular. I don't know if it's worth the expense. I think keeping it simple is better. I've always done it. I've never had a problem. And that's what I recommend people do unless you want to go and step it up. And you can talk to one of our certified Home Show pros, in fact, Absolute Comfort Air. They've got units they offer to sell people, and if it fits you and if you have a medical issue or something, it might be something you're looking for. I don't think it's necessary for everybody.
Right. By the way, Tom talks about our Home Show pros. If you're in the Houston area, you visit homeshowradio.com, and all of our Home Show pros are located right here on the homepage. Let me scroll down here real quick. Right here at the bottom,
there you go.
You'll see you can find them all right there. Or if you're not sure who you're looking for and you're looking by category, we also sort it that way. And you'll find it. There's a funny little video of Tom there. But that's at homeshowradio.com. That's our website where we get our questions. I got one here, came in from one of our viewers, CJ. Tom has a question. He says, if the gaps between the freeze board and the stone structure are larger than the caulk can handle, what can I use to fill the large gaps? The mortars start to chip away in those places currently.
Well, CJ, this is what I can tell you about that. Is you're not supposed to have anything. A freeze board is supposed to fit loosely over the brick, the stone, whatever the case may be. And if it's stone in this case and it's got a real texture and it's not real unified, it can leave gaps up there. And there's nothing that's meant to go up there that's going to look good or stay. You know, mortar, they put mortar up there. It'll last a year or two. It moves around, it cracks out, it falls out, and that's probably what you're experiencing. So it's not a good answer. It's a bad transition between a real stone front and a freeze board, which is a board, for those watching, that comes over the top and leaves it just hides it a little bit. The best thing you can do is when they put that up is get on the inside up higher, and then there's some sealants they can use when they put the freeze board on. So that means you might want to, if you really want something permanent, remove the existing freeze board, have a new one put on, but go ahead and have some of the real thick sealants put up inside of there so you don't see it and it's not all goopy and looking bad, but it's sealing up in there so little mice and bugs and things like that can't get up there, but you still have no sealant down below because it looks better that way. So there's a visual that you have to consider as well as the sealant.
So if I heard you right, if there's too big a gap, your freeze board isn't on right, or there should be other structure behind it?
No, what happens
there
is
shouldn't be that big a gap.
No, there shouldn't. If you get a nice flat brick and it goes up against it, then it can be pretty tight. You want to put a little caulk there, it's fine. But if you get a real rough stone and you try to put a straight board across it, you know you're going to have gaps that is happening all over. And it should fit against the face as tight as it possibly can, but at the same time, a rough stone's going to leave you areas where things can get in, and that's why you want to seal it up above. If you try to fill it with stuff, it looks terrible, and it won't last if you use a mortar or something. It sounds like that's what they did, because that freeze board is going to move and the stone doesn't, or the stone could be moving and the freeze board isn't, and either way the mortar comes out.
Yeah. Now, is this something that we're about to need some pretty significant repointing over there at Casa Moja.
At your house?
Yeah, at Casa Grande,
yes.
Depending on who you ask.
Yes.
But, that's just one of the pleasures of homeownership, having to take care of that stuff. But is this something that they check when they're repointing? Or is this something that's done when you do the siding on the house, Tom, if you're going to have these kind of things?
No, it's something that would be done with the siding. If you're going to get repointing done, let them repoint it the way it is. You've got a brick home. I know your brick on your home. I've been there. It's pretty smooth. So your freeze boards and whatnot are going to be fine. Now, people say, well, I want it sealed so much that nothing can get in there. Well, quite frankly, you have weep holes. You've got attic spaces. You've got things can get in there if they want to. There's no reason for them to want to. If you have a rodent problem, you're not going to be able to seal a house where a rodent can get through a space.
I know,
so
right?
Small,
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredibly. You can't even comprehend it.
We were
so
talking
you have
about
to
this.
Control that a little different.
We were talking about this just the other day over at my in-laws' house, talking about how, and I think you taught me this, is that when you get rodents in your house, it's hard to stop them because don't they leave a trail or something to come back to or something?
They leave a urine smell. And a scent, and then other ones start to follow it as they come in and out the little trail, and that's why rats and they travel in packs. They're pack animals. They will follow each other and they will find a pack to be a part of. And the pack is great if it's not in your attic, but if it's in your attic, the pack is going to go. There ain't no rat pack that's going to be good in your attic.
Yeah, bees I think are the other one. That
Bees,
once they
beautiful thing, but you got to get rid of them if they're in your house.
Yeah, because they're the same thing. They'll leave some hormone or something there that brings them back. And so,
they're looking for the queen. They like the queen. But here's the thing: people say, "Oh, you're going to kill the bees. Oh, you're going to kill the rats." You know what? There's a fine line between the Mother Nature and where you live.
Right.
If you want to live with the bees and the rats, then just put a tree house up and live there. Yeah. So don't feel bad about that. It's the same thing I tell people about trees. And I'm not going to get into a big tree hugging thing because I love trees. I have an orchard, for goodness sake. But if a tree is doing damage to your home, get rid of it. Don't wait. Don't try to nurse it along. It's going to win the battle. Get rid of it. And you know what? You can plant another tree just farther away from the home and everything will balance out. So you don't have to save it. You can always plant one or two more for that matter. Just plant them somewhere else.
I like what you said. It's a fine line between us and nature. and it's usually about this thick. It's usually the wall of your house, and
it's only about 5 inches thick in most cases.
Yeah.
So
that's right. As a man would say, about 5 inches. Anyway, but
okay.
It reminds me of when I was when I took dive training. The last thing the guy said before he went into the Gulf for the first time, he says, "Now remember, when you step off the boat, you're stepping into the food chain."
Ooh, that's why I don't swim in the ocean.
That's right. All right, here's our next
question. I like
question.
the ocean, but I like the swimming pool next to it.
You got questions for Tom, by the way. We're happy to help you out. We have set it up to where you can go ahead and put them in here down on the bottom in the questions in the comments section, and it'll come up here on our screen, and we can put them up and answer your questions here. So if you're watching and we trigger something for you, go ahead and send in your question that way. Our next question from HomeShowRadio.com under the Ask Tom section comes from Donald in Tomball. He says, "I discovered water coming out of the drain pipe on the side of my house. Is this coming from the water heater or the AC unit?"
You know how you tell? This is a great question.
I know.
First off,
but yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, first off, this time of year, if it's winter and you're not running your air conditioning system, whether it's winter or summer, it's not going to be from the air conditioner. So that's number one. But number two is stick your hand under it. If it's hot, it's from the water heater. If it's cold, it's from the air conditioner. So that's how you kind of know. Usually, if it's coming from the soffit above your head, that's the air conditioner. If you have a pipe that's down close to the ground that comes out, a little piece of plastic PVC, that's usually the water heater. It's not going to come down on top of your head because it would scald you, especially me. Okay, so that's why they don't put them up there. Cold water, not so bad. Hot water, not good.
Mm-hmm. So this is a modification of the time-tested Tom Tynan principle. If you want to know if it's wet, stick your finger in it. Okay.
If you want to know if it's wet, stick your finger in it.
Yeah, maybe you've seen his best-selling book.
Ooh, I like that.
Next question.
Next one.
Comes from Lynn and Claudine. She says, how can an electric clothes dryer be vented to the outside when it's not on or near an exterior wall? I think it's a good question. How are you going to get that ductwork all the way outside?
Usually it goes up the wall to the attic or goes up the wall to a floor between floors, like between a first and second floor, and then it takes a turn and heads to the closest outside wall, and you have a penetration and it ventilates outside that way. So that's the only thing, and it's pretty tough to do after the fact. If it's a new home, you can plan for it, but if it'll get convoluted. You'll have some 90-degree turns and things, which is going to happen, which means you have to have it cleaned more regularly. And that means a professional like a chimney sweep, they usually do this. This is part of their training and their job. They will have the brushes and equipment to go through the ductwork and clean it all out, because you have places where it can get a lot of lint caught up in some elbows and things. And when it does, you have a fire hazard, which is the worst case scenario. Or your dryer just dries and dries and dries, or tries to dry, and the clothes don't get dry. And so you can use a lot of energy and really have that thing running all the time, which is not good for the dryer either.
So, straight up.
In the wall, and then you can turn it, or you can go into the attic. You don't have to penetrate the roof. I don't want you to. If you go out a wall, you'll have to penetrate the wall. In a roof, if you get it close to a vent, you could have a ridge vent. You could have a whirly bird, for that matter. You could have any of those. If you have something like that, you can just leave it right below it, and it'll be fine. In fans, like for bathrooms, a lot of people are familiar with those. What we do in new construction is we actually lay them on the floor of the attic and leave it where the soffit vents are. So all the humidity from the showers and the smells from the bathroom, it'll go out the soffit vents. As long as it doesn't just fester around inside the attic, but it's near a vent, it'll naturally find its way out.
So if you do that near your neighbor's house, and you may get some calls or something.
It's going to have to be pretty smelly.
It's true.
I don't think so, but okay.
All right. Hey, we're answering questions, by the way. We're answering questions from HomeShowRadio.com, and that's where you can find Tom and me. Yes. Pretty regular, well, mostly Tom. He's I'm sorry, mostly Tom. He's over there. I'm doing this because the cameras are backward. When we look at it, it's backward. So I want to point at him. And he's over there. But anyway.
That's right.
But if you go there, you'll find a lot more videos and information about keeping your home in great shape and improving it and saving money, which is what everybody wants to do with their house. Okay. Next question we got from there, Tom, comes to us from, Lynn, you already got your answer. Here we go. From Rick in Edna. He says, I want to replace my front porch deck boards. He says they currently extend away from the house in a north-south direction. I was thinking about going side to side, east to west. Is that going to matter, Tom? I'm thinking it would.
It doesn't matter as far as, the performance, as long as you leave a gap between it and it's a deck board that's supposed to, it's supposed to drain water through, then I don't care. The other thing is if it's one of the older decks that have the center match where it's a solid floor, if it has the right slope, I'm good with that also because it has to have a little slope for rainwater to drain off the edge. You'll find that in old homes where they had solid decks. Charlie, you've been from up north in the Northeast. You probably saw that on a lot of homes where they didn't have the spaces in between.
Right. Had one, painted one. Yeah.
Yeah, they painted them. I mean, that's pretty common. But here is what you have to find out. When a deck board goes one direction, the framing goes the other direction so you can nail into it, right? So that could be your problem. And the reason they did it that way is they framed it to go that direction. And if that's the case, then you're getting into a restructure. And I don't think anybody would want to go through that.
Unless it's this old house, because apparently when we watch that, on this old house, Sandy and I are watching it, and we're watching it on, I'm not sure if the current one or not, because we're just watching it on our Apple TV thing, and we're watching one, and they're redoing this Queen Anne Victorian, I think, in Rhode Island somewhere. And the amount of money that's going into that home remodeling project is like, these people have unlimited money. And I think those people could do exactly what you're talking about. But that was the first thought that crossed my mind, Tom, is that I wonder which way the boards are going underneath those boards.
Yeah, those are your nailers. That's your structure.
Right. Yeah. And you go the wrong way, and, well, you can have some that'll be real happy, but in between.
Have a bounciness. But remember, this old house, I've met those guys, and Tommy, who's the old lead guy. Yeah, it's, you do it the right way, you do it the New England way, or it's not done that way at all. I mean, he was very adamant about how he does things, and he doesn't care about your pocketbook with his clients, but the clients that hire him, they hire him for good reason, and that's why he gets to spend, and this is true, he used to at least, he rents a house 2 months out of the year, I do believe, in Key West, Florida, and just sits back and enjoys it. It's one of my favorite places. That's why him and I kind of connected. He's a nice guy. He's a good man.
He has an expression on that show that he uses all the time: "Is the money's in the details." And
there you go.
And I think, and I don't think he means. I don't think he means it the way homeowners think he means it.
Yes. Okay. No, he's a good guy. I liked him very much.
They're great guys, and it's a great show. They're doing something that I love, and it's kind of like what you're doing with the education you're involved in. They're doing a next generation thing where they're encouraging contractors to hire young people and teach them the trade and passing it along. Okay. And that's a great thing.
It is and it isn't. And I want to give you this example, and I'm in this business, and that works for a small part of what you really do. But I've been in the building business, and if I told my clients, and they spent, I'm building $2 million homes, that some of these guys are being here trained and working on their home, they would invariably tell me, take them to another job. I don't want people trained on my house. I want the best you got on my house. So it can turn around and bite you. So there's a fine line contractors have to walk here. And it's a line that I have experienced. And, I work with colleges putting these programs together and training young people. But we train them in-house away from the projects because I feel bad and people don't want to spend their money in an experiment with someone that might be a washout or might do some poor quality work because they don't know, they're beginners. So you've got to be very careful. And this is where I get into some really heated discussions with some of the people who are doing this all over the country. You don't want someone learning on your plumbing, Charlie.
So people know who to write to. Anyway,
write them to me. That's okay.
Yeah. No, I
don't mean any harm by it. I'm good at this. I'm good at what I do.
Well, and I think it speaks to the nature of that show that I'm sure there's some consideration given for the fact that it's on television. I'm sure the contractor has consideration given for that, and the electricians and all the parts and the branded Brian system they're putting in for HVAC and all that. I'm sure all that factors into the way. I mean, I'm in that in the broadcast business. I understand there's consideration all over the place going on there. But anyway, I think it's a great idea. Anything we can do to get the younger generation,
I'm all for it, but I do like the in-house
embrace
training.
The trades. Embracing the trades is a good thing, and
I think so.
And especially, it's like, Alan O'Neill, who runs Abacus Plumbing here in Houston, is a classic example. Alan opened that place, like 17 years ago, with one truck and 2 plumbers. And today, he has 198 trucks, 2 full-time mechanics, and just umpteen technicians, plumbers, and electricians working there. And he came here from Ireland with his, as he once said, he came here from Ireland without a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And look at him today. So, and that's because he got into the trades and did it right. So it's possible. Yeah.
It is, and he used to send his people to my program at Houston Community College. Mm-hmm. So he is a guy that takes all the pieces with his training programs, and he does an incredible job. And more people need to do that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And he's just one example. I mean, I have a lot of clients across the country like that. I've got a client that I was talking to today up in Ohio. He's going to he has 2 locations in Ohio, 1 in Indiana. And I was talking to him in his truck, and that's a guy who started from nothing, and now he's got 3 branches. He's looking at a 4th, and
that's great.
So there's a lot of opportunity in it. And I know that's not strictly home improvement, and that's what you came for, but
yes,
it's an important thing.
But no, I've got my students right now working in Baytown and Exxon in Houston, Texas. And they're loving it, and they're certified scaffold builders, and they're industrial insulators. So I'm in this business on the other side too, and it needs to be done more and more. We need more people doing what I'm doing and what those guys are doing on this old house, and things of that nature.
Tom is training scaffold people. He's involved in the framework of the future.
I don't train. I'm the director. Okay. I put the programs together.
That's right. Believe me.
I don't like heights.
Right. It's like when it comes to editing videos around here, it's like, Charlie, do you have the videos? Yes, with this. I tell Chris, put this here, put that,
Exactly. Right. Somebody's got to orchestrate it. It has to be the lead.
The 2 of us would be lost without all the people behind us that make this
absolutely.
thing work. All right, another question here for you this one comes from New York, and this is a guy named Ravi, and he's from New York, Tom, but I got to tell you, he's from Queens, New York, and Richmond Hill, which is where my grandfather settled when he came from Saba. And there were a lot of people from the West Indies that settled in that area in Richmond Hill in Queens.
Oh.
So,
okay.
We always have a geography section. I didn't want to leave that out today. All right. So he writes, Tom, I live in New York City. The city's so nice they named it twice. And my attic gets pretty hot during the summer months. I have a ridge vent and soffit vents in the front and back of my house, but no soffit vents at the side of my house. I do have windows at the front and back of my attic. How can I get my attic cooler in the summer? My attic can get up to 120 degrees during the summer. Which,
first
of course, we'd call that a spring day in a Texas attic, but okay.
No, that's a little hot. He needs to ventilate it. But the bottom line is, if it's hot outside and the sun's up on the afternoon, it's going to be hot inside the attic. You say, people ask me this in Houston, how do I get my garage cool? How do I get my attic cool? You got to air condition it. That's why air conditioning was invented. And most people are not going to air condition their attic, although there is some kind of weird movement where they're trying that, but it's not something I would recommend. Some of the hottest nights in my life, sweating in a bed, was in Lake Placid, New York, where I used to live, and we didn't have air conditioning, and we had the fans going everywhere and the windows open, and it would just get so still and so uncomfortable. It was terrible. So air conditioning is a beautiful thing, and that's why we use it in a house. As far as that goes, the perfect attic temperature is exactly as it is outside. In Houston, if it's 100 degrees outside, your attic should be 100 degrees. If it's 90, it's 90. In Lake Placid, New York, in January, if it's 40 below zero, which I've experienced. The attic should be 40 below zero. You don't heat it because you'd have moisture issues and icicles growing. You'd have all kinds of weird stuff going on. So that's the ideal attic temperature. But in the afternoon, in the early evening, if the sun is up, the sun is the heater, and it's beating on that attic, it is going to be hotter in the attic than it is outside. And the only way for you to ever stop that would be to air condition it. And of course, that's not an option. So open it up, let it vent all it can. But if you have an air conditioner, run it. If you don't, you might consider one, because as we live in Houston, Charlie and I now, and we've both experienced the Northeast and other parts of the country, air conditioning is a beautiful thing. And Houston is the #1 air-conditioned city in the world. There are other countries trying to do it. India doesn't have central air conditioning. Nigeria doesn't have it. America has it. You might invest in it. And with these new little ductless systems, you might just take a couple of rooms where you sleep or where you want to be comfortable, add a couple of heads, and just do those rooms. You don't have to do the whole house.
But I think his concern is more about how hot the attic itself gets. It's not so much.
It's going to get hot.
House. Okay, live with it. Get over it.
Yeah. That's why you insulate the floor of the attic, because the attic is going to be hot because it's hot outside. Right, inside, if you have air conditioning, it's going to be cool, right? And so you need that resistance of heat flow so it goes back out and doesn't get to the inside, because your air conditioning system is virtually a heat pump, and it pumps the heat to the outside. So you want to avoid that, and that's why you insulate.
Now, I was dealing with a technical thing here. I missed part of what you said. Did you happen to cover radiant barriers when you're talking to him?
I didn't, because I would not recommend it in the New York area.
Okay.
Because it holds heat in the winter time, and winter is incredibly important. And you want your attic cold. If you get warm air in an attic in a winter time, a very cold winter, warm air holds a lot more water than cold air, and it'll have nowhere to go, and it'll start to reach dew point on a surface, which would be the radiant barrier, and the rafters and whatnot, and start to just form a liquid, and that liquid will slowly freeze, and before you know it, you'll have icicles that could be a couple feet long hanging in your attic. So what? You're not in the attic, right? That's what people think. But eventually they will melt, and then you have water leaks coming through your ceiling, and that's what you're avoiding.
Water just does what water does because it's looking for
it never
a drain.
leaves. It's always there. Liquid,
right.
solid, or gas.
Right. Same thing goes for lightning, right? It's just static trying to get to the ground.
Yeah, let's keep that out of the house for sure.
No kidding. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Tom, for spending some time today and covering these questions. Of course. We get here. Tom and I gather here every Thursday afternoon around 4 o'clock Central Time and do this Ask Tom Live. We'll be back again next week to do it again. And if you have questions in the meantime, all you got to do is go over here to our website, homeshowradio.com, click on that blue button over there, and you can fill out one of those, the form, or, oops, who's that? Hello.
Okay.
All right. It wouldn't be a show without a technical mistake here, but anyway.
It's okay.
But anyway, you fill out one of those forms, send it in, and we'll answer it. Tom and I post a new video every day, 7 days a week at homeshowradio.com, on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. If you watch us on YouTube, by the way, you'd really help us out if you give them a thumbs up if you like what you see, and if you don't, keep it to yourself. All right. Well, Tom, you want to recap where to find you this weekend?
Listen to me Saturday and Sunday on Sports Radio 610, or Charlie will help me out with this because I'll miss something. You can podcast it by going to our website and hit the Listen Now button, and you can do that 24 hours a day. But Saturday from 9 to 12 and Sunday from 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610. The 610 means 610 on your AM dial.
Right, and it's also on the radio.com app. So you can, no matter where you are, if you are within the reach of our bandwidth, which is Earth and the International Space Station, you can hear the show on the weekend. So
I'd like to say they listen to me up there, but I'm not sure.
Right? No, it's not like the Lucy show that's being beamed out into space and being listened to alien.
I like Lucy and Ricky. Yeah. Yes, I do actually.
Anyway, but digital TV doesn't do that anymore, so that's not going to happen.
Oh,
so anyway.
That's sad.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. We will see you next week. Listen to Tom this weekend. And you got questions, send them in. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next Thursday.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. advice from a pro who knows. Home Show Radio. Home Show.